The Iron Titan's legacy captain Marcus Delacroix stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as he surveyed the vast expanse of space before them. The ancient battleship groaned beneath his feet, her hull scarred by countless battles across 3 centuries of service. She was humanity's last great dreadnought, a relic from an era when ships were built to endure rather than replaced. "Captain," called Lieutenant Zara Volkov from the communications station, her voice tight with concern. "We're receiving distress signals from the Kepler colony. The Vorthic Dominion has breached the outer defenses." Delacroix's jaw tightened. The Vorthic were a nightmare-made manifest silicon-based entities that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but crystalline wastelands in their wake. Their technology far surpassed humanity's, their ships capable of phasing through solid matter and their weapons able to disintegrate molecular bonds themselves. "How many ships?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. 17 dreadnoughts. "Sir, each one 3 times our size." Chief Engineer Dmitry Kozlov's gruff voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, the old girl's fusion cores are running at 60% capacity. We've got maybe 4 hours before total system failure." The Indomitable had been scheduled for decommission when the Vorthic invasion began. Her quantum drives were failing, her armor was outdated, and her weapon systems belonged to a bygone era. Yet she was all that stood between the Kepler colony's 2 million civilians and annihilation. "Navigation Officer Torres, plot a course for Kepler," Delacroix commanded. "Maximum burn." "Sir?" Ensign Helena Torres replied hesitantly. "At maximum burn will arrive in 6 hours. The colony will have fallen by then." "Then we'll make our own miracle," Delacroix said, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Send a message to Admiral Harrison at Terra Command. Tell him the Indomitable is engaging the enemy." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of dying systems. Everyone knew this was a suicide mission. The Vorthic had already destroyed half the human defense fleet with their superior technology. What could one ancient battleship accomplish against such overwhelming odds? But Marcus Delacroix had served aboard the Indomitable for 30 years. He had seen her survive impossible battles through sheer human determination and the stubborn refusal to yield. Her corridors echoed with the ghosts of 10,000 crew members who had given their lives, defending humanity's frontier world's dot as the ship's massive engines roared to life. Pushing her ancient frame beyond safe limits, Delacroix made a silent promise to the colony below and to the memory of every soul who had ever served aboard this Iron Titan. They would not go gently into that dark night. The Indomitable had one last fight left in her, and by God, she would make it count. Ghosts in the machine engineering chief Dmitry Kozlov crawled through the maintenance shafts deep in the Indomitable's belly, his toolkit clanking against the metal walls. Sparks showered from failing conduits as he worked. The ship's ancient systems pushed far beyond their design limits. Sweat dripped from his brow as he rerouted power from non-essential systems to the weapons array. "Dmitry, we need more power to the forward batteries." Captain Delacroix's voice echoed through his comm unit. "I'm giving her everything she's got, Captain," Kozlov replied, his thick Russian accent heavy with exhaustion. "But these old plasma conduits weren't meant for this kind of strain. We're running on prayers and spare parts." In the tactical center, Commander Vincent Hawthorne studied the holographic display showing the approaching Vorthic fleet. The alien vessels moved with predatory grace, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into rainbow patterns. Each ship bristled with energy weapons that could vaporize the Indomitable in seconds. "Their formation is tight," he observed to Tactical Officer Rebecca Nash. "They're overconfident." Nash, barely 23 and fresh from the academy, nodded nervously. "Sir, our targeting computers are having trouble locking onto their ships. They're phasing in and out of our reality." Then we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way, Hawthorne said grimly. Manual targeting, predicted firing solutions, just like our grandfathers did against the Centauri rebellion. In the ships, chapel, Chaplain Father Miguel Santos knelt before a simple wooden cross, leading a prayer service for the crew. Men and women of all faiths had gathered, their voices joining in ancient hymns that had comforted warriors since humanity first looked to the stars. Lord, grant us the strength to protect the innocent, Santos intoned. Let our sacrifice not be in vain. Medical Officer Dr. Yuki Tanaka prepared the infirmary for the coming battle, her hands steady despite knowing the odds. She had served aboard hospital ships during the Martian War, had seen what Vorthic weapons did to human flesh. But she pushed, those memories aside, focusing on her duty to keep as many crew members alive as possible. On the observation deck, Quartermaster Jonas Pike watched the stars wheel by as the ship accelerated. He had served aboard the Indomitable longer than anyone except the captain, had watched her evolve from humanity's pride to a museum piece pressed back into service. Yet something stirred in the ship's ancient bones, a defiance that transcended. Mere machinery got the intercom crackled to life. All hands, this is the captain. In 1 hour, we engage the enemy. They outnumber us, outgun us, and their technology surpasses ours in every measurable way. But they have never faced humans who refuse to surrender. Today, we show them what 3 centuries of human determination looks like. As the crew prepared for battle, the Indomitable sailed toward destiny, her ancient hull singing with the resonance of courage itself. The dance of death, the first salvo of Vorthic plasma, tore through space like liquid starfire, each bolt capable of melting through a kilometer of hardened steel. Captain Delacroix gripped his command chair as the Indomitable rolled hard to starboard, her ancient gyroscopes screaming in protest. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Damage Control Officer Lisa Park. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we've lost atmosphere in sections 12 through 15. Return fire, Delacroix ordered. All batteries, maximum rate. The battleship's massive rail guns thundered, sending tungsten slugs the size of shuttlecraft hurtling toward the nearest Vorthic dreadnought. The enemy vessel's crystalline armor absorbed the impact, rainbow fractures spreading across its surface before healing instantly. Direct hit, no apparent damage, reported Gunnery Sergeant Jake Morrison from the forward battery. Sir, our weapons aren't even scratching them. Commander. Hawthorne studied the tactical display with growing desperation. The Vorthic ships moved through space like dancers, their hulls phasing in and out of reality to avoid incoming fire. 17 massive dreadnoughts surrounded the Indomitable, each one unleashing devastating barrages that the ancient battleship could barely avoid. There, shouted Navigator Torres. The third ship from the left, when it phases back into our reality. There's a half-second delay before its shields reactivate. I see it, Hawthorne confirmed. Morrison, concentrate all fire on target designation Tango 3. Fire on my mark, ... mark. Every weapon on the Indomitable spoke as one. Railguns, plasma cannons, and missile batteries unleashed their fury at the precise moment the Vorthic vessel solidified. The concentrated barrage struck the alien ship's hull, and for the first time, they saw Vorthic armor crack and bleed strange luminous fluid into space. The enemy fleet responded with fury. Plasma bolts hammered the Indomitable's shields, overloading the ancient generators and sending cascading failures throughout the ship. The lights flickered as Chief Kozlov desperately rerouted power from life support to keep the weapons online. Captain, Dr. Tanaka's voice came over the com from the medical bay. We have casualties on decks 4 and 6. The Vorthic weapons are causing some kind of molecular disruption. I can't treat these injuries with conventional medicine. In the engine room, Kozlov watched in growing alarm as the fusion reactors began to redline. The old containment fields were failing, and if they lost containment, the resulting explosion would vaporize half the ship. "Give me everything you've got," he whispered to the ancient machinery. "One more fight, old friend. Just one more." As if responding to his plea, the ship's engines stabilized, drawing power from reserves that shouldn't have existed. The Indomitable surged forward, closing distance with the Vorthic fleet despite the withering fire. "Sir," Torres called out. In amazement, the ship's responding better than she has in years. It's like she knows this is her last battle. Delacroix nodded grimly. Ships that served long enough sometimes developed something beyond mere programming, a soul born of shared purpose and sacrifice. The Indomitable was dancing her final dance, and she intended to make it memorable. Another Vorthic dreadnought fell to their concentrated fire, its crystalline hull shattering like broken glass. But 15 ships remained, and the Indomitable's armor was failing under the relentless assault. The real battle was just beginning. Requiem for heroes, the Indomitable listed heavily to port. Her hull breached in a dozen places as atmosphere vented into the void like bleeding wounds. Captain Delacroix's uniform was torn and bloodied, but his eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, where 13 Vorthic dreadnoughts continued their relentless assault. "Direct hit on the bridge," Ensign Torres reported, her voice strained. "Sections A through C are gone, sir. We've lost contact with the forward batteries." Chief Kozlov's voice crackled over the damaged intercom. "Captain, I've lost 3 fusion reactors. The containment fields are failing across the board. We have maybe 10 minutes before total power loss." In the medical bay, Dr. Tanaka worked frantically to save what remained of her patients. The Vorthic weapons didn't just kill the unmade. Matter at the molecular level, leaving wounds that defied medical science. She had lost 30 crew members in the last hour, including young Morrison from the gunnery section. "Dmitri," Delacroix called to engineering, "can you give me one final?" "Surge, everything we have left?" "Aye, Captain. But it will burn out every system we have. The ship won't survive it." "The ship was never meant to survive this," Delacroix replied quietly. "But maybe something else will." Commander Hawthorne looked up from his tactical station, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Sir, if we channel all remaining power into the main gun, we might be able to punch through their flagship's shields. But we'd have to get within point-blank range." "Plot a ramming course for the Vorthic command ship," Delacroix ordered. "All remaining crew to evacuation pods. This is no longer about survival. It's about buying time for the colony evacuation." "Chaplain." Santos's voice echoed through the ship's corridors as he led the final prayer. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for humanity's courage goes with me." But something extraordinary began to happen. The crew, instead of fleeing to the escape pods, remained at their stations. Navigator Torres kept the ship on course despite the bridge filling with smoke. Damage Control Officer Park continued sealing hull breaches even as sections of the ship disintegrated around her. In engineering, Kozlov manually held failing plasma conduits together with his bare hands, his flesh burning as he channeled humanity's defiance through sheer will. "Sir," Torres reported with quiet dignity, "the crew has voted. We stay with the T ship." The Indomitable began her final charge, accelerating directly toward the massive Vorthic flagship. Enemy plasma fire tore through her hull, but the ancient battleship pressed on, her crew's determination somehow keeping her vital systems functional beyond all physical possibility. 500 kilometers and closing, Hawthorne reported. 400 The ship's main gun, a massive rail cannon designed to crack moon-sized asteroids, began charging for its final shot. Every scrap of remaining power flowed into the weapon, including life support, artificial gravity, and emergency systems. At 100 kilometers, Captain Delacroix gave the order that would be remembered throughout human space. Fire. The railgun discharged with such force that it split the Indomitable's hull down the middle. But the massive tungsten penetrator, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, punched through the Vorthic flagship's phasing shields. Struck its core, the alien vessel exploded in a cascade of crystalline fragments, taking 3 neighboring dreadnoughts with it in the chain reaction. As the Indomitable died around them, her crew smiled, knowing they had proven something important about the human spirit. Legacy of the Indomitable. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler, Admiral Patricia Kellerman stood before the newly erected memorial on the colony's central plaza. The monument bore the names of all 847 crew members who had died aboard the Indomitable, their sacrifice having bought enough time for the complete evacuation of Kepler colony's civilian population. They faced impossible odds with an impossible ship. Kellerman addressed the gathered crowd of survivors and military personnel. But they proved that human courage can overcome any technology, any superior force, when we fight for something greater than ourselves. The battle had changed everything. Analysis of the Indomitable's final engagement revealed crucial weaknesses in Vorthic technology, the precise timing of their phase shifts, the vulnerability windows in their adaptive shielding. Within weeks, humanity's remaining fleet had developed new tactics based on the old battleship's desperate innovations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the chief scientist studying the wreckage, presented her findings to the Defense Council. The crew didn't just fight with their weapons. They fought with their minds. Every tactical adaptation, every impossible feat of engineering came from human creativity under pressure. The Vorthic's artificial intelligence couldn't predict or counter pure human intuition. The Indomitable's sacrifice had ripple effects across the galaxy. Other species that had surrendered to the Vorthic dominion began to resist, inspired by reports of an obsolete human warship that had destroyed 4 enemy dreadnoughts through sheer bloody-minded determination. On Terra, the shipyards worked around the clock to build a new generation of vessels. But these weren't sleek, automated warships. They were built in the image of the Indomitable, with redundant systems, manual overrides, and designs that prioritized human crew capabilities over artificial intelligence. Captain First Class Maria Santos, daughter of the late Chaplain Santos, stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned battleship Undaunted. The ship bore design elements from the old Indomitable. Exposed structural beams the crew members could grab during battle, manual backup systems for every automated function, and a chapel where the cross from the destroyed battleship had been installed. Captain, reported her communications officer, were receiving reports of Vorthic activity in the Proxima sector. 3 colonies under attack. Santos smiled grimly, her father's faith and courage flowing through her veins. Set course for Proxima. Maximum burn. Send a message to the Vorthic fleet. Tell them the Undaunted is coming, and we learned from the best. Throughout human space, the legend of the Indomitable lived on. Children played games recreating their famous battle, always choosing to be the ancient battleship facing impossible odds. Military academies made the engagement required study, teaching future officers that victory came not from superior technology, but from the refusal to accept defeat. The Vorthic Dominion, for the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, had encountered something their advanced calculations couldn't quantify: the human capacity to exceed all limitations when fighting for others. In deep space, the wreckage of the Indomitable drifted silent and cold. But among the twisted metal and shattered bulkheads, something endured a legacy of courage that would inspire humanity's children to reach for the stars with unbending determination. The last battleship had made her final stand, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy what humanity truly meant when they refused to surrender. They were outgunned, outmanned, and outmatched, but they were never outfought. The crew of the Indomitable proved that day that the greatest weapon in the human arsenal isn't technology. It's the refusal to give up when others depend on us.